Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of r/ProRevenge. My name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, as well as have notifications turned on, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. Wiggity wiggity whack, boss wouldn't pay me back. Bippity boppity boo, ended his job and marriage too. When I was in college, I had a minimum wage job in a bargain retail store. I worked in the warehouse and around a lot of older guys, and the job required heavy lifting, usually 75 to 250 pounds of pallets and boxes. I started off working in the warehouse and it motivated me to start lifting weights seriously. I lost 25 to 26 pounds over the course of my first 6 months there by working out solo at the campus gym. However, most of my coworkers were older guys. I was 23 or 24 at the time, with whom I'd had very little in common. I rarely talked to anyone else, but I did want to be seen as one of the cool guys. So it was strange, but an honor when the manager of one of the fleet delivery trucks, we'll call him Victor, approached me at work one day and started conversing with me. Victor was older, 45 I think, but he was well respected by everyone in the warehouse. He dressed well and seemed pretty fit. In the course of conversation, we discussed lifting weights together, and he invited me over to his home gym one day. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to lift together on a Friday when his wife, we'll call her Nora, was at work. I showed up at his house with one of my favorite t-shirts on, and Victor was shirtless. He suggested that I lift with no shirt too. I felt uneasy about it and said no. Victor snatched my shirt by the left sleeve and pulled it until it ripped. He apologized, promising to buy another shirt for me, and I had to lift with no shirt on. We worked chest and triceps, but throughout the lift, I felt uncomfortable. Victor kept touching my chest and my stomach. He said it was to focus. I kept pushing it to the back of my head, but I did decline to go inside Victor's house. I left my ripped shirt at his house in the garage where his weight set was located. Over the next few days, the awkwardness increased. Victor asked during phone calls if I had a girlfriend, if I was having sex regularly, if I watched porn. He ran into me at the break room at work during my lunch break and would always sit close to me just to talk to me about really personal stuff. I learned that his wife was a pastor at a prominent church, that she made more money than Victor, and that Nora did not believe in sex outside of procreation. When I asked about my shirt being replaced, Victor said he had money problems. I ended up replacing the shirt myself later. Victor invited me over again to work out with him. I wore a tank top that time. Victor asked me to take it off. I did, and during the workout mentioned he was behind on his electric bill. He asked to borrow $40 and said that he and his wife were having a rough patch, so he couldn't bother from her. Like a gullible idiot, I went to the nearest bank and withdrew the money and put $40 in Victor's hands after our workout. He promised to pay me back at payday. Payday came and went, but Victor's presence did not. I received late night after 10 p.m., phone calls from Victor, and when I answered, he would sound drunk and talked endlessly, occasionally talking about my body. I stopped answering his calls and got voicemails from him, also sounding drunk, asking me to call him back. When I confronted Victor at work to stop calling me and pay me back, 2 days after payday, he told me he'd pay me back next payday and that he just really needed a friend to talk to. I felt bad, agreed to wait, but also made up an excuse of how I couldn't lift weights with him. He didn't pay me back the following payday either, but Victor did send me a thread of pictures with his shirt off, in his underwear, and nude, all within the week of payday. When that third payday came, Victor avoided me at work. The revenge. Infuriated with his harassment and not being paid, I went to Facebook the day after payday and found Victor's wife's Facebook page and her church's Facebook page. I created a Gmail account with Victor's full name, then created a page with his first and last initial, and uploaded all of the photos he had sent me. Then I befriended his wife in the church's Facebook page, set all settings to friends only level privacy, and logged out. That same night, I called our company's ethics hotline and left a voicemail tip. Mr. Victor Freeze is drinking very heavily and making lewd comments to coworkers and customers. Please look into this. Within a week, Victor was fired. Not only had he been drinking on the job and sometimes came to work hungover, he had been using a corporate gas card to fill he and his wife's vehicles. He was arrested during his shift, and several employees saw him walk out in handcuffs. I unfortunately did not. Victor called me drunk again from his hotel room after his wife kicked him out of their house. Not satisfied with this level of revenge, I recorded Victor's voicemails into a handheld recorder I had bought for my college class. I mailed the recordings using Victor's home address as the return address to his wife's church and marked it as, "Attention, Nora Freeze. Press play." Then I changed phone numbers. I haven't heard from Victor in years, but his firing was the talk of the store for months. TLDR, he owed me money and tried to make me his honey. He got very rough and did a bad touch, so I ruined his life. Was it funny? So executive jobs are more important than mine? Even if I'm the one to make things go, then pay me for staying home. My dad worked in a company doing some engineering work. I'm not going to specify where for obvious reasons. The thing is that he arrives there several years ago, and since he's very good at his work, he rapidly knew how everything works there, where everything is, and what you should do, etc. In the recent years, this industry has been in a steep decline, so a lot of firing has been going on in the last 3 to 4 years, until the closing is inevitable. But as some of you know, environmental regulation on closing industries can last for even years applying impact mitigation. So my dad stayed for more time than he thought because information is power. During the closing process, a lot of inefficient managers and executives had passed by the company because no one knows anything except my dad. But as you may know, it's more important to save money keeping these people rather than actually use useful people. So my dad got fired. He took this in a very smart way. Saved a lot of money since he owns the house and has no debt, and seeing this situation coming years ago. Over the course of the week after being fired, he kept receiving calls of managers to ask him work stuff they should know, until my dad told him to stop it, because he doesn't work there anymore and has no access to the critical data in his work account, only accessible by the company laptop which they gift him. If they wanted to give him the raw data, he'd do it. But he will not help at all since he's not getting paid. In less than a day, they call him in to go to a meeting in headquarters to reincorporate him. And he says no, but they insisted, to the point that he went anyway to the meeting, letting them know in advance he will not come back. This meeting came and they offered him the same job, same pay, etc. He declines, so to convince him, the company said for him to make an offer to the HR department. By this point, my mom tells my dad to go nuts on the offer, to make a FU to the company. Obviously, the HR rep made a counteroffer less good than the initial one. His former work back to shine for saving money as a great negotiator. Also, he's one of the guys who agreed my dad was too expensive, so he was unnecessary. To what my dad says no, and goodbye. 1 week after that, HQ and a big committee calls him for asking why he's not working by now, because everything's upside down in the work. So my dad tells them that the HR rep and the managers didn't accept his offer. After they hear that, they practically beg him to come back, accepting his offer. In response, my dad founded his own consulting company, so now they have to negotiate with him in other terms, as an external consultant, and the cost for the work is now higher due to this being a company and not a single person. So magic happens, my dad has a job with better pay and almost no field work, just answering calls and giving advice to clueless people on how to do stuff, making some maps and having meetings every once in a while. Which, since he's the only one who knows anything, it's more like a class than a meeting. A Rubicon isn't worth your job. Dad is an electrician but has a logistics company. Basically, he and his crew unload things from ships. He doesn't give a damn about clothing. All he likes to buy is coffee in the morning and tools. No matter what the tool is for, he just needs it. Anyway, I convinced him to buy a new car because he's earned it, blah blah blah. He always wanted a Jeep because he likes to go on an adventure. He's from the country but never learned how to drive properly. We went to our nearest dealership and were told to leave as they didn't want people like us. We were just a little dirty from work. Didn't even have dirty boots. We just drove to the nearest gas station, mad as hell. Occasionally, there was an old pal of my dad. Long story short, he was the son of the original owner of the Jeep dealership. But my dad didn't say anything about what happened. They just talked about electricity stuff and old times, and I was just eating. He invited my dad to his dealership and promised a nice discount if he could accept his son in our job, as my dad had connections inside the port. I was alright with that, but it was kinda bittersweet for my dad. Next week arrived and he invited us to check on a Rubicon he had. Turns out we were a little too early and he wasn't there. Same story. We got there, a dude told us to literally F off, and another lady warned us with the police. If my dad was mad last time, he almost had a stroke this time. But we waited and waited until we saw his friend pull up over the dealership. And we did the same thing we tried last time. Enter the freaking dealership. This time it was kinda worse. That salesman was angry and the lady started yelling. But we had an angel waving at my dad from the back as he came closer. He noticed the show. That salesman told him that we wasted their time and didn't even look like we had the money to rent a car. The lady told him that we tried to get inside the cars. I've never seen a person go from white to red so quickly. The owner just yelled that we were friends of the family and that nobody deserves to be threatened like we did. He also said we could have easily bought every car they had, which is not true, but I take it as a compliment, and the salesman was in pure shock. He looked like his soul just left his body, and the lady was in tears, shaking and couldn't move. My dad's friend fired the salesman on the spot and guaranteed that his career as a salesman of any kind has ended. The lady resulted to be his daughter and apologized to us and promised to give us extras on any other car we bought. But later, in a dinner, her mom explained that she was being abused by her partner, hence the reaction and her attitude. I'm glad she changed for good and everything went well for her. After that, we came back the next day, and this friend was too ashamed of what happened, didn't feel well, and had to close for the day. We got a Rubicon with a couple of extras and a pretty good discount. He told us that he couldn't sleep that night, and all he did was call his friends to warn them about this now unemployable salesman. After that, he contacted the Ministerio de Trabajo, the entity that manages all work-related things, government stuff, Ecuador, and issued a letter about what happened. He just needed my dad's side of the story. My dad felt like he pulled the trigger on somebody's head when whoever took his explanation of the story told him all the repercussions of what happened that will affect the salesman. She told him that he probably will be unemployed for a while, and if he ever tries to ask for a work visa, he's gonna be double-checked, and that my dad is free of pressing charges. He decided not to. It was enough. As for the friendship, they keep in touch occasionally. TLDR, salesman gets fired and his curriculum checked because he's a moron in front of his boss. Gone wrong for him. There you have it, folks. The end of the epics. Did you like it? Be sure to leave a like on the video as well as subscribe, that way you could stay up to date with all the latest and the greatest. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here on Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.